Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Amobian. Looks like she's joining us now.
Very good.
Connor. Malik.
Here.
I see that Councilwoman Amobian is joining now and connecting to audio.
And if
Okay,
I
all
can
members are present.
thank you. If I can have a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting, please.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion, a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have, back on, it was in June, I believe, we'd had a public hearing about this next item. Item's been on our agenda for several months now, and I don't believe we really had anyone, come forth much at that public hearing, so we were going to give the public another opportunity to speak today. So at this point, if there's anyone that is wishing to speak at our public hearing today, we're going to ask if you would please stand and be sworn in.
Good afternoon. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true, complete, and accurate?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to defer to Councilman Fusco, if you would, please.
Thank you. Yikes. Okay. I'm supposed to turn on my microphone. I'm kind of new here. So this is amending our contribution limits here in the city of Akron and changing them from, for a ward council member, from 500 to 750, for a mayor or an at-large, those that wish to run citywide, from 750 to 1,000. The new piece here is that the Pac contribution limits, currently they're just similar to those for a council ward or a mayor at large. So with that, so it's 500, currently it's 500 for a ward person, be it from a PAC, from an individual, or a political party. Okay, we're the only city in Ohio that does this. And then on top of that is the 750 for mayor or at large currently, and that's the same across the board. Whenever I notice that whenever it comes to PAC contributions, we're the lowest. Even after we would request to increase it, and also the political party contributions, we would be at $2,500, same as PAC contribution limits, which is $2,500 proposed. Okay, so the thing with that is Lakewood, they have $5,000 contribution for a PAC, and then from a political party they have $2,000. We would be at $2,500, so we would be a little bit above what Lakewood currently has from political parties. But other than that, we would remain, even if we would pass this today, whenever you compare us to the other cities out there other than Lakewood on the political party contributions, we would still, if we would pass it today, be the lowest in the state of Ohio with all the information that's been collected. The last time the council adjusted, this was 2014. And I will tell you this, so after, if we would pass what's currently being offered, and I'm always open to suggestion, but Columbus is 13,000 per calendar year. That's not per election, we're per election. 13,000 per calendar year. Cleveland, 1,500 for council, 5,000 for mayor. Cincinnati is 1,100. And Lakewood is 2,700 per calendar year. The rest of the cities, all the way down to Sandusky's, it's got 25,000. There is no limits. Okay. In terms of PAC contributions, 13,000 per calendar year, 3,000 for council. In Cleveland, that would be 3,000 for council, 7,500 for mayor, and that's PAC contributions. And that 13,704 per calendar year is Columbus. So We are still, and Lakewood is 5,000 per calendar year for PAC contributions. Whenever it comes to political party contributions, Columbus is similar, 13,700, as they are with the PACs. In terms of political parties, Cleveland has no limits from a political party in the city of Cleveland. Cincinnati has a $10,500 political contribution limit, and Lakewood is at $2,000. So I think it's reasonable what we're proposing here, and so thank you for allowing me a few moments here to kind of describe this proposal. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and hear our testimony first from individuals, and then we can come back to comments. Do we have anybody else that has joined us that wishes to speak that has not been sworn in?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true, complete, and accurate? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go with our online testimony first. If you could please introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Barnes. I'm President and CEO of State and Federal Communications. We are based in Akron, Ohio. Our company keeps track of campaign finance laws not only in Ohio, in states and municipalities across the country, not for politicians, but for corporations and trade associations that want to be involved in the political process. I did want to make one comment from Councilman Fusco. I just want to remind everybody that PAC contributions are the benevolent funds from the company. Their employees, and it's their senior employees, pledge so much money to the PAC that is used for contributions either on the local level or state or federal, because corporate money is not permitted in the state of Ohio. It's never been, and I will tell you, in the decades that I've been doing this, only 2 states have changed their laws regarding this. I appreciate Councilman Fusco on that debate on the comments about other jurisdictions. We pulled some information, and we first gave this information to former Mayor Don Pasquale's Blue Ribbon Committee back in 1999. Currently in the District of Columbia, you can contribute $2,000 to a mayor, $1,000 for council at large, which Akron does not differentiate, and council ward is $500. I had 2 other ones. Los Angeles also has mayor at $1,500 and city council for this year's election is $800. And the last one really is Seattle, which was the first city to pass an ordinance regarding campaign finance back in the 90s. And their mayor is at $600, mayor and council members are at $600. And I just ask that you consider increasing the contribution. Not that the people have to give $750, but they're able to give $750 to their city council member running, because basically in the last 8 years, you all know how much costs have increased for printing and signage and everything you want to do. You really can't just run by putting it out on Facebook. You have to pay for things, and everything just costs more. And I wanted the opportunity just to share that Akron is in line with a lot of other municipalities, not only in the state, but in the entire country, in needing to increase this on a regular basis. It has increased a lot since 1999, but even now we know that it needs to increase more. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but I really wanted to convey my thoughts. I am currently in Syracuse with the Greater Akron Chamber leader visit.
Thank you, Ms. Bartz. We appreciate you coming forward, and thank you so much for your time. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Could you please offer us your name?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Fran Wilson. Thank you for letting me speak real quick. I saw this originally when it was proposed in June or July. Just wanted to bring two issues. I think the cost I think the amount, the increased amount is understandable considering the cost of items are going up. I think the two flags that I have, especially speaking with a couple people, is giving unequal power to PACs and parties over individuals and Akronites. I think we should level the playing field here, allow PACs and parties the same power as the average Akronite to be able to contribute. And then my second flag is distinguishing the type of PAC. I think we can look at the jurisdiction and the connecting orgs of PACs and further distinguish and regulate those. Just wanted to share some thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Anyone else to speak in opposition? That will call the public hearing closed. We could continue to have some discussion from either council members on the committee or council members that are with us. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Goodness way. Yes, please, Ms. Samples.
Thank you, Chairman Freeman. Councilman Fusco, you elaborated on the amounts that were given from other municipalities like Columbus, Cleveland, Lakewood, and Washington. Do you have those population numbers?
Yeah, it's attached to legislation in the back. It doesn't have, I don't think Washington's on here, but it's attached to the back.
I can't get on the internet, I'm sorry. I mean, for Columbus and Cleveland, I could see that it's understandable. Their populations exceed ours, double and one even triple in population. So that would give them a bigger district to cover. Lakewood is smaller than us, and I understand that. I can share those concerns of the PACs being able to give these large amounts of funding over an individual. That concerns me greatly. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to discuss a meeting ground on that, but it always concerns me and a lot of other people that our PACs control politicians because of the amounts of money that they give. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Samples. Mr. Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Fusco, and thank you to the two folks who participated in in our public hearing. Just echoing some of the sentiments, I think one thing that the chart that you referred to, Mr. Fusco, shows is that we are very lucky to have these limits. I think it is an important part of maintaining a democratic process that there is a ceiling. Particularly with some of what we've seen at the state level, in having everyone be able to have a voice in the process by not having too high of a limit. If there are places where there are no limits whatsoever, the ability to influence elections is pretty significant for an individual, or for a political party or PAC for that matter. As has been said, I think the one point of pause that I have is around the distinct levels for political parties and PACs versus individuals. I think certainly the increases are, in line with increased costs and inflation. And also, just want to say to Ms. Bartz, thanks for joining us from Syracuse. My mom's family is from Syracuse. I would love to know if there are contribution limits in Syracuse. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. Any other comments or questions? I see the hand of Ms. Holland, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am pleased to hear the comments concerning leveling up or leveling out contributions among PACs and individuals. I think it's a very, very important point. I would also encourage everyone to take a moment and regard the fact that this is an issue that has not come up since 2014, and I think that is likely not without good reason. I think that there is a natural and understandable public concern about the role of money in political action, political decision-making, and I think that this is a concern that we should take very seriously. It is a time in our country and in our city where there is a great deal of division and concern about whether all voices are being heard. And I think that this is both cause for pause, but also, cause for consideration about whether the time for this is now, whether there is a real ability to simultaneously build trust and take things in this direction. I do understand the concerns about prices and inflation. I am, in fact, the only member of city government who's on the ballot this season. All of that said, I appreciate the opportunity to hear the various points of view, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holland. I will now come to Ms. Amobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to remind all of us that the citizens voted for campaign limits some time ago. And listening to the one voice in particular, Mrs. Bartz, it only confirms for me that the limits that we have are within reason. If someone is running in Seattle with $600, and I know we all know that Seattle is much larger than Akron, then I think that this is reasonable. One of the things that's always concerned me about the campaign financing is that we continue to chip away at the opportunity for the average citizen to participate in the process by asking for these increases. And I think the $500 and $750, these are limits that we can live within. I don't see a need to increase them at any level, and I am fine with this. And I will not be supporting this legislation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Amobian. Any other comments or questions? I know this is an issue we've looked at, and I think the last time we did something about this, I was paying $3 for a hamburger, and today, I think I'm paying $8 for a hamburger. So even if it's just the idea of keeping up with expenses right now, but if there's no, oh, okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Neal, I did not see your hand. Thank you. I will call on Mr. Neal at this time.
Mr. Chair, my last two colleagues pretty much are my concerns, and this Amobian, really zeroed in. I mean, if Seattle can function and it became $600 the cost of living there, surely we beat the expression of the equitable access and impact of our constituents being able to contribute. Quality of it is if you increase the campaign limit.
Looks like we've lost Mr. Neal.
We did, I'm sorry.
Okay. He was I could tell he was having trouble with his connection.
Yeah, do you want to give him, I saw that Mr. McKittrick also had his hand raised. Do you
Okay,
want
yeah,
to
we'll
give
come
Mr.
to
Neal a
Mr.
minute to come
McKittrick,
back?
and then Mr. Neal comes back on, we'll come back
I'll
to you.
defer to President Somerville. She's got her hand up.
Okay, very good. Thank you. President Somerville?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank Councilman Fusco for bringing this to our attention. Again, we know that this body, Akron City Council, is charged to visit our campaign finance limits on a regular basis, and we have not done that. So I thank him for bringing this forth so that we can have this conversation. Again, we know that all costs have gone up, and the limits that are brought forth are reasonable. So I just want to say that I am in support of increasing the campaign finance limits.
Thank you, President Somerville. Mr. McKittrick?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. As a person who was an ordinary citizen who ran in 2019, I didn't have a campaign finance amount that was carried over from a previous year, and I started from scratch. And I can tell you, if this had been changed, then from ordinary people wanting to donate to my campaign, I wouldn't have spent so much of my own money. I have done some research in anticipation of this campaign season ahead of us, and I found out that the cost of science and the cost of literature has gone up considerable. I've talked to some of the other candidates that are running who were quite surprised how much more they had to pay this cycle. So I am in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we do not have Mr. Neal back on yet. Mr. Fusco.
Thank you. I appreciate the discourse. I appreciate all the comments that are coming forward. Just a couple quick ones from myself. First of all, that, you know, I was just comparing us to Ohio cities, and there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 that have limits for a political party. I'm proud to be a Democrat, and if my party, they don't just give out checks willy-nilly. Believe me, they make sure and they ensure that the candidate is aligned with what they stand for, and I've always been proud of that. But that would obviously go for another party. In terms of the Pac contribution limits, there's also, as was described by Elizabeth Bartz, there's companies out there which this gives an opportunity for companies, but yes, also the unions, they have PACs as well. And this gives an opportunity for the average person out there that to contribute and to participate. And especially, you know, if that particular individual stands with them on whatever that issue would be and is aligned, it gives them an opportunity. And plus the other side of this, which I don't want any of us to miss, and that is this will help, this gets our message out as a candidate. A candidate is able to communicate with the public and tell them what they stand for or what they don't stand for. And this helps that candidate get the message out to the voters who at the end of the day are making the call. And I don't believe any of these are out of line, you know, super large. I kind of don't like comparing us to those larger cities, but if you look at Toledo, they're a little larger than us. They have no limits whatsoever. We have a population of 190, they have a population of 270, and below us is Dayton at 137. They have no limits. Parma, 81,000, no limits. Canton, 70,000, no limits. Youngstown, 60,000, no limits. Lorraine, 65,000, no limits. Elyria, 52,000, no limits. In Lakewood, and they have theirs, but after that, Cuyahoga Falls and the rest of them, all the way down to cities as small as 25,000 people, they don't have any limits whatsoever. So again, I'm open-minded in terms of, you know, discussing this, and I've heard all the comments and happy to have further discussion. Not going to ask for a vote today, but again, I appreciate everyone's comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Fusco. I'm looking around to see if I have any other comments. Mr. Malik.
I think Mr. McKittrick raised a point that I hadn't considered, which is the, you know, ability of folks to fund their own campaigns using their own wealth. I guess maybe it's a question for the law department. I guess it would be helpful to know if any of the other jurisdictions referenced in the sheet, whether there are any limitations on the amount that a candidate is able to give to their own campaign. I think that would be helpful. If I can put that in writing, if it would be helpful to ask that.
Would you need that in writing? No? Okay, thank you. I know here it's unlimited what you can give yourself, to yourself, I think. Yep. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to continue to take, just sitting here listening to him, we've had some good comments. I do know this, if we do nothing, we essentially are telling all the candidates, it's a decrease for you. because signs are now more expensive. Lithography is more expensive. So I would say, you know, we're seeing record inflation since probably the days of President Carter. So, okay. Yes, now I see Nancy Holland's hand up. Yes, Ms. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I would just add that in addition to my observation that the public perception is that money in politics is at the heart of many of our problems, I would simply add and encourage all of us to consider that even as many are looking forward at the election calendar for next year and feeling concern about inflation affecting the costs of signs and printing and whatnot, that perhaps we need to take a breath and take a step back and consider what that very same inflation is doing to the working families of Akron. And, you know, I don't mean to condescend, and I don't mean to suggest that it's wrong. In fact, it's my understanding that it is one of our duties to examine whether these limits are in line, and that it simply hasn't been done in a number of years. But again, I wish to express my concern that timing and appearances, optics, I think these things are all important. I think that it is important that we be sensitive and understand that even as there's apparently a lot of concern about the rising prices of campaign signs, there are concerns about rising prices in every category. Agree that nobody is obliged to give the maximum, but again, would encourage us to be sensitive to the climate and to the conditions of our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neal, we lost you last time around. Let's try again.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Again, I echo the comments of my colleague and as well as Mr. Mobian. You know, our constituents did set the limits. If they're to change, I think we need to engage them, because there has been expressed on our floor many times a concern that money influences our decisions. And, you know, I just did a brief audit. There's been many issues that have been voted on by members of council that have received campaign contributions from folks that are listed on that legislation or work for that company that are on that legislation. I think we need to take a pause and kind of like do an audit on our sales. The good thing about this is that everybody's impacted the same. So we're not competing against for municipal election. We're not competing against the folks in Colgan Falls. We're not competing against the folks in Cleveland. We're competing against each other, and we all have the same rules and guidelines that we have to abide by. And increasing the limits does disenfranchise the common folks, has been mentioned by folks online and I think even there inside the chamber. It impacts them in an adverse way. So I understand the increase in cost, but I think right now, until we address the issue of trust with our constituents out there in the community, we do well to leave the limits as they are, or if we feel that they need to be raised, do like we did last time, take it to them and let them decide.
All right, thank you, Mr. Neal. And now I'd like to come back to Ms. Amobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to remind us that whether we like it or not, we're going to be living with this mess with First Energy for years to come. And it all had to do with politics. And the citizens were going to be stuck with paying the $60 million bill or whatever amount it ended up being. And all we have to do is look at that. And that will continue to live with us for a long, long time. And as you can see, that company is still suffering repercussions of those activities. So we need to be very careful, because a lot of times the folks that we do business with and we give contracts to are the main ones that are financing our campaigns and giving us money through PACs and other ways. So we need to be very careful. That's why I believe that the citizens spoke a long time ago when they did campaign finance limits for us. And we need to learn to live within the limits. And again, I think most of us can do a pretty good campaign with the limits that are set, because most of these campaigns are virtual anyway anymore. So I just want to remind folks that every time something happens, and this happened too close to home for comfort, and it was pretty shameful, and we're still living with it because it hasn't been totally resolved yet. But anyway, just wanted to remind us of that as well, because every time something happens, it's a reflection on us as politicians. Even though we're all good servants and we're all trying to do our best in serving the public, we still have to live with the repercussions of other politicians. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come to Mr. Fusco.
Yeah, thanks. I'd just like to remind council and everyone here that the charter voted by the people provides council to review, to conduct a public hearing, to review every even-numbered year, so we're not doing this during an election year, okay? We do this every other year, even-numbered year again, and also that it's up to council to set these limits. The last time council voted on it was 2014, okay? Before that, and I'm not sure what year it was voted on by the voters, but just that it's not, the voters gave us, as legislators, as representatives of theirs, the ability to call this shot. So I think that's important so that we're all on the same page.
All right, thank you. And I just remind anybody, we don't need to be reminded here in the chambers, but anybody that's listening, regards to the money that we raise, it's all public record. You can go out and see who gave us money, how much money we have, how much money we've loaned to our campaign. So, you know, lest anyone think this is secret information, it's public record. So I just know there's a perception sometimes that folks can't know what we've raised and who's given to us, and that really would not be so. So, no other comments. I think we will continue to take time, if that would be okay.
Motion for time.
We have a motion for time. Is there a second for time? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. And we have nothing else on our agenda. We are adjourned at 2:35. Thank you.
Our next committee of the day is the Public Safety Committee. Those committee members are Kamer, Mosley, Lombardo, Malik, and McKittrick. Just give everyone a moment that is switching seats here. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, I'd like to call the public safety meeting to order, please. All members are present. We did host a meeting last week where we approved one old piece that was on our agenda. Can I get approval of those minutes, please?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We do have two new pieces in front of us, and then we're going to have a short presentation. Our first piece is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to file an application for and, if awarded, accept and expend grant funding from the AFG 2021 Assistance to Firefighter Grant and declare an emergency. And I believe we have District Chief O'Neill with us. When you speak, just try to speak into the microphone, Chief, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Council. This is from the 2021 Assistance to Firefighter Grant, which is done through FEMA. We requested $320,000 worth of equipment and training. We're going to use that to buy thermal imaging cameras, which are going to go on all of our pumpers. And then another piece of it is for training, for command and control training for the entire department. Happy to answer any questions if anybody has them. The city's share of that is 10%, which is $32,063.
Thank you, Chief. Council members that are on the committee and chambers, any questions or comments? Anybody online with us?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if you can see that Councilman Malik has his hand raised.
Yeah, I see his hand now. Thank you. Councilman Malik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chief, for being here. Could you just go into a little bit more detail about the thermal imaging cameras and how we hope to use them in the field?
Sure. Currently, we have cameras on all of our ladder trucks in the city. The ask was to get funding to put them on all of our engines as well in the city, so that's 13 additional cameras. If you don't know what a thermal imaging camera is, it uses infrared technology to help firemen see through heat, in smoke and darkened conditions, so we can find victims, so we can find the seat of the fire, so we can find exits when we need to get out. It's basically a set of eyes to help us see in the dark. And as I said, right now we keep them on our ladder trucks, but we felt it would be prudent to have them on all our pumpers as well, so every fire truck has one.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Chief, what is your pleasure for this?
If we could move it forward tonight, that would be great.
All right, thank you. Ready?
Motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We'll pass that. We'll present that one this evening. Our second piece, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids to replace and/or remodel the kitchen at Fire Station Number 10 and declare an emergency. Chief.
So this is part of our facility improvement budget. This is for the kitchen at Fire Station Number 10, which is the original kitchen over there. The kitchen and the dining area is the main meeting point for the stations. That's where we do all of our training. That's where we sit in the morning and talk things out. This one's very outdated. The countertops are destroyed. The cupboards are in bad shape. So we've been going through this. I've been here before for other stations doing other kitchens. This is where we're at now, Fire Station Number 10 over in Kenmore. The quotes came back higher than the $50,000 threshold when we initially looked at it, so we needed to bring it to council to get the proper approval.
Thank you. Committee members first, any questions or comments? Councilman Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chief. I guess, is this like a smaller part of a broader repair budget? Because there are moisture issues, and that sounds like a lot of, concern. Will this address all of that, or is this going to be an ongoing thing next year and in future years?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Is this to resolve all the issues? Is this like a full renovation, or is this,
It is.
what is being done with this?
This is a complete overhaul of the kitchen,
Okay.
complete with stainless steel countertops,
Okay.
which we have found is the best solution for our countertops.
Okay.
The countertops over there currently are Formica,
Okay.
and years of water getting on the countertops have led them to deteriorate. The stainless steel holds up quite well. It's a little more expensive, but in the long run, it's definitely proven to be worth it. So it's a complete overhaul. It'll be a totally new kitchen.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions or comments? Let me move online.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if you can see that Councilwoman Mosley has her hand raised.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you, Chairman Kamer. Funding source, what funding source would this be coming from? Issue 4, maybe?
It is part of that money, and we have a facility improvement budget that we have been granted every year to do projects at our stations. So it's a piece of that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, what is your pleasure on this, Chief O'Neill?
Just because it's kind of timely, I was hoping to move that forward tonight as well.
All right, thank you.
I'll make that motion for suspension of rules with a favorable report.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you, Chief. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Before we adjourn, Chief of Staff Kurt Wellams reached out to me, our Service Director Chris Luddle. They're going to speak to us a little bit about the elevators, I believe, over at the Stubbs building. I'll turn it over to them, and then if we have any questions or comments, I'll take them from committee members first. Chris? Kurt?
Thank you, Chair. We appreciate the time. Last week, it was brought to my attention through the Service Director, through employees at Stubbs. I'm intimately involved with the Stubbs elevator situation, that they were under an issue. Currently, the only elevator working is the prisoner elevator. The prisoner elevator is only operable by a key. It looks like when you had skates when you were little, one of those master keys, but unless you're issued that key, you do not have access to that elevator. That elevator does not stop on all floors in that building just because of where access was needed for prisoners. It is compromising the public's access to that building. The employees currently are having to use the stairs for most of their transportation through that building. I was told that the court is going to use Zoom where Zoom is available. They're going to use the mezzanine, much like we did during COVID protocol, just to bring the traffic down to the lowest level. It's not necessarily going to be on that first entrance floor, but they can take it up to the mezzanine level where probation is. You can see it from the street. There is elevator access to that particular floor to help with just the immediate problem of getting people to court, getting in their public spaces as well. Just so everybody here is aware, we've stopped bringing prisoners over completely from the jail, so they will still be seeing prisoners as needed. That, the county did a great job of putting a virtual court system in place. Basically, since the beginning of COVID, that system has been improved and prisoners have not been brought over. So the immediate need to make sure anybody that's being housed at Summit County Jail is seen immediately, and that process has continued. I have not seen an issue with that, don't anticipate an issue with that, just based on COVID protocol and how we've kind of addressed that. I will punt to the Service Director for updates on the elevators being repaired and or fixed.
Thank you, Gert. As you know, last week on Sunday, we had an officer stuck in elevator number 3. Just to familiarize everybody, elevators 1, 2, and 3 are on the High Street side. Elevators 4 and 5 are on the back side of the hallway, which is, let's call it Broadway side. So let's talk about 1, 2, and 3 first. 1, 2, and 3, an officer was stuck in number 3. The elevators currently only go through floors, which is the main lobby, up to 9. I don't know how this happened, neither does the elevator company, but number 3 went above floor number 9 and got stuck, which means there was no access. So fire department came in, they got on number 2, the middle elevator, rode up on the top, and then they were able to retrieve the officer out of number 3. At that point, they did have a problem with number 1. They tried that first. As you know, these elevators are approximately 55 years old. The door hardware obviously wears out over a period of time. So we've been looking to upgrade these elevators for some time now. So going back to number 4, which we call the employee elevator, which will go all the way from the basement all the way up to 10, and that's how we access equipment on the roof, is through elevator number 4 or the employee elevator. The generator has been out for a few weeks. It supposedly is going to return tomorrow, and they're going to put it back in service. We're hoping Wednesday, Thursday at the latest. At that point, we will have one working elevator that we can go all the way from the basement all the way to floor 10. I do believe the clerk of courts has put a person down in the lobby to take traffic ticket fines to make it easier on the public in this meantime. Elevators 1, 2, and 3. With the court moving out next summer and the construction at OK6 going very well, so it looks like the court will be moving midsummer of 2023. And with the traffic that will be left in Stubbs, We've worked with APD last week, and they feel like 2 elevators out front would be more than enough needed. So we are going to, currently, we're taking door parts off of number 3 and installing them on 1 and 2 to get these 2 elevators back up. The anticipation is to get them up by the end by Friday, October 21st, which basically is about 3 weeks. We hope to get those 2 elevators back up. In the meantime, elevators 1 and 2, they need their electronic boards upgraded or refurbished. They need their power supplies refurbished. So we're going to pull those power supplies and boards out of number 3, send them out to, I believe it's Baltimore, to get them refurbished. When that comes back, we will install the boards on number 1 and then pull number 1 out and get the boards refurbished and put them back on 2. When 2 comes back online, we'll refurbish that board. At that point, we'll have a spare. Now, getting back to the door hardware, that's where a lot of these infrequent shutdowns happen because the safeties don't interlock, they're wore out, and that's why we're pulling some of the, and when you say a door, when you think, well, we have to upgrade the door hardware, it's to all 9 floors. It's just like, okay, you're gonna do number 1, it's just not 1 floor, you have 9 doors, so you have to upgrade all this. So we're looking at a proposal right now, and engineering's also looking at a proposal to upgrade number 1 and number 2. So it'd be all new door hardware and obviously the electronic boards. So if everything goes as planned, we should have these elevators on, like I said, by October 21st. And at that point, we'll be ordering door hardware. When the door hardware comes in, it takes about 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks to refurbish all 9 or 10 floors. So number 4 will be first. Once we get 1 and 2 back on, we'll put all new door hardware on number 4. Then that elevator basically will be done, and then we will do number 1 and number 2. So how long is this all going to take? With supply chain issues, we're looking to keep at least 2 elevators running throughout the whole process, but by the time we get all 3 upgraded, we could be talking near the end of February of 2023. So our goal is to have 2 working elevators and 2 working elevators throughout this time, and then have all 3 upgraded with new door hardware and the boards and the power supplies. I know that was a lot, but.
I got questions. Councilman Kamer?
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, we'll start with Councilwoman Mosley first. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for addressing this. I've, of course, got flooded with emails from employees over at the courthouse. My first question is, how many times in the last 10 years have we had to service these elevators, and how much have we spent in the last 10 years servicing these elevators? That's, I guess, a double question. I don't know if you have that information out, if you can get that to us. And how are we handling, I appreciate that we're handling the court arraignments via Zoom from the jail, but how are we handling if someone wants to turn themselves in and we have all these elevators down and they want to just walk in and turn themselves in?
The court security, Adam Wall's been handling those, and he just has been coming down. Even pre-COVID, he was coming down because they just don't have that presence in the arraignment room like they did. So Adam does a really good job of just coming down to address those. And I guess, too, I didn't mention, if anybody would like to have a trial, we have made arrangements in the past with either going off-site or using the ceremonial courtroom. I've talked to Andrea Whitaker. Okay. She was going to suggest that she didn't know anything that was pressing and going to trial this week, but they would try and make those arrangements with common pleas easier for the jurors, all of that, just to be in that building as well. So.
Okay. And I understand that we'll have the court and the clerk's office will be moving to Ocasek, correct? So long term, if we're leaving the police officers in that building, I think we really need to figure out what we're doing with those elevators. I'm over there at least once a week, and there's always an elevator down, sometimes 2 elevators down. And just to think that any staffer, especially a judge, is having to ride that back elevator with prisoners is very, very unsettling. I've watched it happen.
Well,
And
there
it's
shouldn't be any prisoners in that building currently.
Right, currently,
For
but in the-
trials or
yes.
hearings, there aren't any prisoners in
Okay.
that building.
So even if you guys are having a bench trial, you're handling that via Zoom now?
A bench trial, the person would stay at jail because it's just being to the bench.
What if it's a jury trial?
Jury trial, they come over, but again, we'd make arrangements at the ceremonial courtroom to bring them over at this point. But other than that, everything from the jail is video.
Staying at the jail, okay. So if you could, I don't know if you have to talk to Fricker or not, find out how much we've spent on those elevators. And it just seems almost like we're chasing our tail with these elevators over there. It seems like there's always one broke. We're always having to approve something to fix them. And knowing that they're going to be down to February, that's a lot of employees who are not going to be working because of elevators.
Well, just to be clear, the employee elevator will hope to be up this week.
Okay.
So that leaves us with the employee elevator and the inmate elevator. So both 4 and 5 will be operational. 5 is operational currently. So I'm hoping by Wednesday or Thursday we'll have those 2 up. Then October 21st, I think is a Friday, they should have number 1 and number 2 up for the public. Okay? At that point, we're going to do this major upgrade to all the doors. So 4 will be first, once we get 1 and 2 up, and then that won't be upgraded. According to the consultant, it's an Otis elevator. It's one of the older ones, but they have very few problems with. The other 2 parts are difficult to come by, so the front ones, 1 and 2. But once we get that door hardware on there, then we're going to look at doing a modernization like we did here. Right. But the money we put in to the power supply, the electronic boards, and the door hardware will not have to be done. It will be done, it will be upgraded to new equipment. So that will be till February. But in the meantime, we're hoping to keep 2 up the whole time, not counting the inmate elevator. That's always going to be kept separate.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
So we're not going to mix and match.
Okay.
That's
so
the
the
plan.
4 and 5 elevator for the employees, all the employees in the building have access to the
They'll
elevator?
have access to number 4.
4.
Number 5 is the inmate elevator.
Inmate, yeah,
Right
yeah.
now, we are moving some people up and down with that elevator with a key, with an operator.
Right.
But we're not taking an employee and an inmate at the same time.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions or comments from members in council chambers? Councilman Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to both of you. I appreciate the proactive giving us an update on this and the amount of information. As we all know, these elevators have been an issue for many years. You know, it sounds like we have a plan, and I appreciate that, Mr. Little, the plan that we have. I guess, you know, the broader question it raises is that, you know, the municipal court will be moving over to Ocasek, but we're not sure what the long-term plan is for the police department, for probation, et cetera. So do we have any thoughts as to kind of the long-term viability of the Stubbs building, especially if we're making, you know, a significant investment in the modernization of the elevators?
Oh, probation is going with the court. They will be going to Ocasek.
Okay.
So we have started a working group with the police department, with engineering, to look at what do we need to do once they move? How do we convert the space? How do we make this best practices, not only for our police department, but for our traveling public? So we have just started that process. Now that we know when they're moving, and it looks like next June or July, they should be moving, then that space that's opened up, how do we renovate that to make that best practices? Because it doesn't really make sense if someone's coming in for an interview to go up to 6 or 7. They should be down as low as possible. So more inviting for the public. They can come in, you know. So we are looking at best practices, how to make this the best for the police department.
Okay, and I guess, you know, part of that is, are we looking at potentially building a new building for the police department, or are we looking at refurbishing and maintaining stuff?
We're going to look at that first, at refurbishing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Howland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think a couple of my questions have been answered by the immediate preceding questions and answers. I'd like to start by first saying thank you for the comprehensive information and presentation.
We live in an aging city where most of our downtown anchor buildings, if you will, have elevators, and many of them are very likely on the brink of their useful, productive life. And so this, I suppose, should not come as a big surprise to any of us. It seems as though we might want to factor in some sort of anticipatory plan too, because there are other buildings with old elevators. This comes up not infrequently in the housing arena as well. And when it comes up in any arena, I believe that one of our responsibilities is to consider that we have a two-front additional responsibility, which I think that Ms. Wilms and Mr. Luddle have already certainly addressed thoroughly, but I think will probably be an ongoing challenge, and that is that we have obligations under the Americans with Disabilities Act to accommodate differently different needs of the public, but also of our employees. So it is of some concern to me as I hear all of this laid out that we, be actively mindful that for both visitors but also workers in that building, that they, best as can be done, be identified and accommodated, even as this complex, many different moving pieces process goes forward. Elevators aren't just a convenience for a significant portion of our population. They are absolutely essential, and I know you know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfectly said. I agree. Councilwoman Amobian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I didn't hear all the comments, but I'm just curious, is there a way, and I think the service director and Gert could probably answer this, for municipal court judges to move to a different location, for instance, in the Oliver Case building or somewhere where they can provide accommodation to people? I don't know what kind of space is available, but I know that I'm hoping that we have other places that their work could be done. Is that possible?
Yes, and this has already been discussed. We had an opportunity during COVID to explore a lot of these. Oriana offered us locations. We have used the ceremonial courtroom in Common Pleas to schedule our hearings, especially when we had prisoners involved, and the municipal court has made pretty good use of the mezzanine area in their building. Again, there is one elevator that is working. It just has some obstacles because it is a key. It doesn't stop on all the floors, but it would stop on all the public floors. So people can get to where they need to in that building. Might just take a little longer and require some patience. But the municipal court's done a really good job, and COVID really brought it to us to learn to make do with what we had. And really using the mezzanine, using that space is something the court is going to explore. Using Zoom is something the court is very familiar with and is going to continue to use as well as needed.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anyone else? Sarah, do you see anyone else?
Chairman Kamer, if I could just add one thing I may have forgot. The renovations that we'll be doing all require state inspections, so that'll be part of these renovations. So all 3 elevators will be state inspected when we're completed. And just to go back to Councilwoman Mosley, one quick thing. When you said the last 10 years, that's all operation and maintenance, because we have regular maintenance on that requires a state inspection. So I don't know how you wanted me to, I'm going to give you everything. All right, of what we spent there in the last 10 years, because some of it's just ongoing regular maintenance. We have a contract every year that we bid out, and I'll give you all that, okay?
Thank you, Chris. Gert?
Councilman, we appreciate the opportunity to present.
No, thank you, I appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out. With that, nothing else come before us. We are adjourned.
That is our final committee meeting of the day. Council will meet in special session tonight at 5:30 and regular session tonight at 7 o'clock.